Howdy neighbors, welcome to the old time Noya Mountain Music channel here today. Got a great interview with the amazing maestro John Reischman, and this is from the Monroe Jam Lab workshop. This is the second one we did. This happens once a month, and you can read all about that at noyamountainmusic.com/scoop. If you want to be a part of the workshop, we've been doing it for a long time, since COVID. We get in there with Dave McLaughlin, we have some laughs, we work hard, we study a couple of selections every month, one song and one tune usually. And usually it's not in Bill Monroe's repertoire, but it's like jam session material. And then we study those through the Monroe lens so we can hone our jam skills. But I've always just loved John Reischman as a person and as a picker, composer, of course, the amazing Salt Spring. He is Salt Spring. He talks about that in here and shares a lot of good mandolin wisdom about his journey. And anyway, so if you like this content, please think about supporting the channel. We'll like or comment or subscribe into the channel. And then you can think about patreon.com/Noya Mountain Music. Many thanks to folks that do. And without further ado, here is John Reischman on the Monroe Jam Lab Workshop. I would like to welcome the amazing John Reischman to the Monroe Jam Lab. Thank you so much for being with us here today.
Oh, well, I'm happy to be here. Am I coming through okay?
Yeah.
Coming
through.
Great.
Coming through real good.
Well, I found that highly informative, all that I just checked in with.
Oh, well, that is mighty kind. Appreciate that. Are you still up in the Northwest in Vancouver?
Yeah, just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia.
Yeah, you've been there for a long time, right?
Yeah, over 30 years.
Yeah. What's your world up there like?
It's wet currently, but it's great. It's been a great move. I started playing music professionally in the San Francisco Bay Area in the late 70s, early 80s, and that was a great place to land. And there's a lot of great bluegrass in addition to the new acoustic music that David Grisman and Tony Rice were playing. But then I had a good reason to move to Vancouver about 30 years ago, and I still love going back to California and all over the States, but it's been a great place to live.
Yeah, when I think about the Bay Area, it's I have two main thoughts. The one is just maybe a little bit more of a liberal atmosphere and open-mindedness when it comes to creativity and stuff like that. And then the beautiful irony of the San Francisco Bay Area being such a bastion these days, and probably for the last couple of decades, probably largely thanks to Vern Williams, as being really hardcore traditional in a beautiful way.
It's really true. I mean, I think people talk about sometimes mistakenly about California bluegrass and thinking it's progressive and modern, and there certainly is that element in there. But when I was coming up, moving to the Bay Area wasn't a big leap for me because I grew up in Northern California, about 2 hours north of there in Ukiah. And but my friends and I would go down to San Francisco and hear bands like High Country and the Phantoms of the Opry that Pat Enright was in, and that was all really Monroe-based music. So I think maybe in Southern California there might have been more of the progressive stuff, but definitely the scene in the Bay Area was very reverent towards the traditional stuff.
Kind of the best of both worlds. Did you come from a musical family? Were your folks into music?
Yeah, a little bit. I think my mother played piano, but although I never really heard her play much. My older brother Steve is really talented singer and guitar player, and he plays in a bluegrass band in Portland, Oregon nowadays. And an older sister had a beautiful voice, and she used to play in wedding bands and at weddings, that kind of thing.
Did they encourage you to get going with music or inspire you, or?
Well, I guess the way it worked is I'd taken guitar lessons when I was at 9, but it didn't really stick. But my older brother appropriated the guitar and learned, 12-bar blues and Creedence Clearwater songs from them. And then when I got a little older, he showed them to me. And I had another good friend who sang and played together, and I really aspired to join them, which I ultimately did.
Did you already feel like at that early age your ability to access your own creativity was bubbling, or was that something that came later?
I think Yeah, it took a few years, but once I really got into playing the mandolin and playing it tuned properly, and learning a lot of fiddle tunes, I started writing tunes. I came up with a melody. I thought that was, I'll try my hand at this. So yeah,
Do you
it
remember
was.
your first tune that you wrote?
I remember the chord progression. It was mainly like I think it would probably be better suited to the banjo because it had this sequence of chords, and I called it the meat and potatoes rag.
Would you show us that real quick?
Well, I'll show you the chord progression.
Yeah.
It was something like so A to D, so G. So it kind of had a logic where it went from A to G, then to D, down to C, F
Yeah,
to E.
that's already kind of outside the bluegrass box. So you were having other sounds in there from the beginning.
Yeah, well, I think I did like, some of this more progressive stuff, and I was open to the traditional stuff as well. But maybe it was influenced by Hot Burrito Breakdown or something like that. The Alan Monday tune, I guess.
Yeah, dig it. Do you remember a couple of the big places like in your journey from like going from beginner to intermediate or intermediate to more advanced? Some places where you're like, oh, I did this and really felt myself level up. Do you remember any of those
Yeah,
things?
yeah. Because I used to play about as much guitar as I did mandolin, and I remember I was a big Doc Watson fan, and I was just playing the guitar, trying to play Salt Creek, and then all of a sudden I could. And I don't remember like slowing it down so much as I guess I did slow it down. But anyway, it was kind of miraculous to me that it happened. I'm still kind of perplexed by how that worked out. But just somehow the right hand, the up and down picking worked, and I could hear all the notes, and that was one for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It can be a little bit of a magical thing. All of a sudden you're there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was pretty. There's no one showing me this stuff. I was just, learning by ear, listening to a lot of music, and then a good friend of mine, Kevin Johnson, he also was into it, and he would learn a tune, and he'd show me, and I'd show him tunes, and we just worked up a repertoire and
Yeah.
just hanging out.
So, one of my favorite things to think about or to ask folks about are is like on your journey you've learned from so many different people, had so many different experiences in the world. What are some things that are fascinating to you about the way it all works right now?
But before we do,
Please like and subscribe. And go ahead and hit that little bell there for the notifications. And you'll get all the good stuff from Noya Mountain Music. Thank you.
and please consider becoming a patron on patreon.com/Noya Mountain Music.
The way the music works, or just
Yeah, like what aspects maybe seem like prescient to where you are with your own musicality right now.
well, I guess I'm of a certain age where a lot of the musicians I end up playing with are much younger than me, which is I find very very inspiring and invigorating, and it feels really good because they know I've been around, and there's a certain I guess respect they pay me, which not that I expect it, but it's nice when it happens. And but yeah, it's just it's been really good being able to play in different contexts. I mostly play with my own band, John Reischman and the Jaybirds, but I'll play and put together a spin-off, not a spin-off from the Jaybirds, but just a sideline group. And it's usually people who are at least 30 years younger than me.
Yeah. When you're working with folks who are interpreting your music, what do you feel like works best in the communication department to kind of bring out the best parts of how you're feeling the music in a way that brings the best out of them and doesn't
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm just choosing people that I have a sense that they're gonna, just know what to do, and
Yeah.
I've been pretty lucky about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, one of the, I had a bluegrass band for years, and I was always trying to get people to do stuff that they weren't good at
Yeah,
instead
yeah.
of just like, well, what can you do? Let's work with that.
Right, right. There was. I made a record about 10, 12 years ago, and there was this certain group of musicians I was working with, and I just kind of introduced the material that I thought played to their strong points, and that seemed to be the better way to do it than try and make someone sound like a bluegrass fiddler or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if it's okay, I might like to ask you a little bit about what it feels like and the whole kind of energetic dynamic of when an epic tune comes to you, like Salt Spring. That was one of the tunes that started getting played a lot in Nashville in the early 2000s. Such a beautiful, different tune that has been so meaningful to so many people. And I'm just curious, I'm sure you've, possibly thought a lot about it, through the years. And if there was any kind of, like, how did it emerge? Was it just another tune at the time, or did you know it was like super special? Did it touch your heart in a certain way at the time, or did it grow with you?
Well, I liked it when I came up with it. I just thought this is cool. It was kind of a. It's not the most inspiring way it came together. Well, the A part, I was on Salt Spring Island and I was playing a friend's old Martin guitar, and I was just that melody popped out. I was playing it out of a D position on the guitar, and I liked it. And I started playing around with different chords to set off the melody. Because
Yeah.
that's one thing I like about writing tunes is there's come up with a melody, but then there's different ways you can harmonize it. So I liked what I'd come up with, but I thought, well, I'm playing mandolin. I should really play it on the mandolin, and I'll move it to the key of A because everybody loves A, and then I had this. That's something I would just riff on when I pick up my mandolin. So it was kind of like a spare part. I just stuck it on the A part and said, "Oh, this will work," and it did. So
I love that. It's so simple, but it's the touch and the feeling that comes through that, I've heard so many people play it, but no one plays it just like you. And it's a beautiful melody, so it's gonna sound good in the hands of so many. But I love what you just shared there. It was like a noodle that became an epic, part of a tune.
yeah, yeah, it's really interesting. And I guess I was listening to a lot of old time music and trying to emulate the sound of a frailing banjo. So and the same thing for the A part, keeping that bum ditty sort of thing going, so droning on that high E note.
Yeah, yeah. The voice of that mandolin is so lovely. Did you feel like that changed the way you played or influenced the way you played?
Getting the
Or just
mandolin?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, probably so. I mean, it's a totally inspiring instrument to have, and it's been my voice for over 40 years now. So yeah, I know exactly what it can do, and it's still super inspiring, and I feel very very lucky to be the custodian.
Yeah, we're lucky it's in your hands. And everybody who's in the meeting, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. I've got a lot I want to pick John's brain about, so I'll just keep on with it. But if there's something y'all want to know about, just pop in the chat or raise your hand.
But
or
yeah,
whatnot.
the Salt Spring it surprised me that people got into it so much. I'd had earlier tunes that had more kind of a regional popularity, like a tune I wrote early on called "It's Been Real" that I played with the Good Old Persons. People picked up on that, and up and down the West Coast, and maybe beyond that as well. But that was so I'd kind of had that experience. But once Salt Spring took off, it was just went everywhere. It was a worldwide contagion.
Yeah, and I just thinking about it, just that one little line, it's that G sharp note, which is a little bit unusual, isn't it? Over the D chord. Da, da, da. What's that note called? Like in the scale? I can't-
I get what's the major seventh? I get in A. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I guess that's right. Yeah, that you're right.
that just kind of really it speaks a little bit differently. Maybe not a common note in the maybe bluegrass world. Maybe that's one reason that
Well, maybe
it's
it's the time value it has. It gets sustained a little bit longer than if it was just a quicker passing note. But it
yeah.
lays there for a while.
Kind of hangs there for a second. That
Yeah.
is so lovely. When you're thinking about like all the great musicians you've been around, are there a couple of things you might share about stuff you learned either from somebody saying something to you or just something that you picked up from another musician that have been like really significant and meaningful?
Yeah, well, early on, after I'd learned some fiddle tunes and could play pretty well, I didn't have that many people to play with, but I found myself in a situation with these couple guys who knew bluegrass and played with them, and it was fun session, a fun jam session, at the end of it, one guy says, "Well, you sound really good. You just need to play louder." Which I could hear myself. It seemed loud enough to me, but I saw his point because there was a banjo and then so that was one thing, playing louder, and then tonally, I was in a band in the Bay Area, and a friend of mine was good friends with Daryl Anger, and I guess Daryl heard this recording we made, and I'd been using the pointy end of a standard pick,
Yeah.
and they said John should try the rounded shoulder. So I did that. So I've been using a rounded shoulder ever since, and because he was right.
Yeah. Well, I think it takes, curiosity and some good humility to just be like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll try that.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, nah, I got my thing.
That was it. And, a few things. This kind of came to me after the fact, but I remember, when I used to play with Tony Rice, and it was when I played rhythm in that context, I think I tried to play, it was this new acoustic music. It wasn't bluegrass, but it was the way my right hand was working I was trying to play the way Tony played rhythm, where it was a busier, strummier pattern rather than a rhythmic chop, or not just a straight two beat chop, but any sort of percussive thing. And I think maybe it was Todd was trying to get me to do it at the time, but later on I realized that probably would have been more appropriate. So those are a few things.
Is that something that could be demonstrable?
Well, let's see, like that kind of rhythm where it's syncopated, but it's and something more like that, where the percussion comes through more than just a sustained chordal sound. But that being said, I remember one of the things that I think Tony liked about my rhythm playing is that you could hear all the notes in the chord. It wasn't just a sort of sound.
Yeah. Do you feel like your time feel has evolved through the years? And if so, how do you feel like what you've gathered about how you want to approach it, how has that changed?
I don't think it's changed. I think, it's probably from listening to bluegrass, but I had this sense of how the beat feels, how I like it to feel. And I don't think it's quite maybe as forward leaning as some schools of bluegrass, but it's definitely not behind the beat.
Yeah. So when you're in a session, or like a jam session or a recording session, an on stage jam, whatever, something like that, and it's shaky, Like, what do you do? Like, do you have like?
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I probably try to play as close to the main rhythm instruments, the bass. I guess mainly the bass, and just try and. But so, someone gave me some advice. I won't name names, but a really great guitar player and I were hired by a bass player who was more of a jazz player, and the feel was not what the two of us were used to. But he had more experience with this musician, and he just going into it, he said, "Just don't fight it, just go with it." So there's that too.
Yeah, yeah, I dig that because that's probably been for me my weakest area of feeling comfortable on stage or in jam sessions when stuff's fighting. I'll have a tendency to want to fight again. I'll think, oh, well, Bill Monroe would be like, we'd be trying to like just hold something like that, and it's just like so much work, and it's just so stressful.
It's interesting. I always feel like if I'm playing, in a session where it's not happening rhythmically, and I can't play beyond it, it makes me sound like I'm at that same level. And I was talking to Alan Monday about that, and he said, "Yeah, I know what you mean. The only guy I know who it wouldn't affect was Byron Berline. He just sounded great, no matter how good or bad the accompanying musicians were."
Interesting. He was so strong.
Yeah.
John, could we ask you to share your version of Red Wing?
Oh, my version of Red Wing. Well, today it's.
That's so good. We just had this come into the chat from Gwen, and this I'm going to connect to how beautifully you just played. She says, for John, the songs of yours I've heard seem like gentle and nature inspired, like ponies in the forest. Do you feel like you have a main theme in your life music wise? And I just was reflecting that because as you're playing that, and I don't know why I've always got this vibe for you. Maybe it's just like thinking about you living up there in Vancouver and the wet and the ferns and just this nature, like this kind of earth thing happening through there. Is that just projection on our parts, or is that like a big part of like you?
I don't know. It could be both. I don't really. It's not a conscious decision. Although that Ponies in the Forest comes kind of from that same place as Salt Spring, because it's inspired by old time banjo, I guess. But I've written other tunes that are not quite. I wouldn't necessarily say they're gentle. Like there's a tune it's a real fast tune in E called Big Bug that I wrote, and that's just I don't think I'm not warmed up. It's like that kind of thing.
Not so gentle.
Yeah, so it's not. I wouldn't call that gentle, but I don't know. I'm just very happy that people tend to like my tunes and learn them. But except now, whenever I write a new tune, I have to think, oh, are people going to learn this?
Right. Yeah. So I've got a few minutes here.
Yep.
So I know you, and I do want to let everybody know that if you don't know, John teaches with the Peghead Nation. And could you tell us a little bit about what you're sharing with that platform?
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, I teach 2 courses. The first one they asked me to do was just kind of a general repertoire class called Melodic Mandolin. And it's basically just tunes that I play and like. And it's stylistically diverse from old time to bluegrass to new acoustic to some jazz and swing and to some Latin music. A lot of my tunes. And then the one I'm currently doing that I'm filming for currently is old time. And that's, for the most part, it's old time fiddle tunes, but there's some some of the content is based on vocal tunes. Like the current one is the Carter family song, "The Storms Are on the Ocean," and just how I approach that using double stops and using double stops as a launching pad to play more fleshed out melody.
Would you share a little bit of that with us?
Sure, I'll try, and I should have looked at the video before I. Just that sort of playing.
That is so beautiful, and that tone you get out of that mandolin just sounds so perfect and makes everything you do sound so good. And thank you for
thank you.
Thank you for sharing it with us. Yeah, man, so welcome. When you've been teaching it and connecting with people, I would just imagine that over the years some folks might have come back and be like, hey, you shared this with me, and it really was a game changer, or like it felt like it was a pivotal kind of turning point in the development. Would you care to share with us a couple of things that you feel like generally like have really been effective for getting people to kind of switch their mindset in a helpful way about their development and like trajectory with their relationship with the instrument?
Well, I think a lot of what I teach is about double stops, because people learn tunes, fiddle tunes and whatnot, but playing songs, if you play the basic sung melody, it can sound kind of square. So if you use those double stops to really embellish or harmonize the melody notes, and use as launching pads to play maybe more a linear type phrase, I think that's really a good thing, a good next step for a lot of maybe not beginners. If they can play fiddle tunes, that's it kind of advanced if you think about it. But I think it's just more useful in bluegrass, definitely.
Yeah. I think that I think some people have a little bit of a trouble, like when they get started with the double stops, they want to like make a double stop all over the place. But what I try to get across is just like, just get them where they're easy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can connect, like if you play this G double stop, if you go into a C chord, you don't need to go here. You can just go, there's a neighboring one. Like the double stops can be as simple or as advanced as you want to make it, but I usually start with just this one's Sharon Gilker's called medium, long, and short, and the repetition of those. So that you can do a lot with those, and I'll just teach like something as simple as. So all the good times are past and gone, and only using those three shapes.
Yeah, that'd be a great one for folks to be studying on. Got a couple minutes left, and when we were doing the sound check, you mentioned getting to have a workshop with Bill, or sitting down and playing some tunes. Would you tell us a little bit about what that was like, or maybe?
Sure. Yeah, well, this is probably about 1982 or so, and I was living in the Bay Area and playing with good old persons, and we were booked at, I think it was the Norco Festival in Southern California, which was a long-standing festival, and Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys were there. And Kathy Kallick had gotten to know Bill a little bit through her husband at the time, Butch Waller, who's a hardcore Monroe-style player, and they had gone to visit him, so she knew him, and somehow we were back at the motel where all the bands were staying, and we were in this room with a bunch of people, and but no one else was playing except, I guess I got my mandolin out to show Bill, or he had his there, and we were playing together, and I guess the main thing that was happening was people were calling out songs they wanted to record of Bill, his version of Patty on the Turnpike, for instance. And I do have this recording, and the last time I listened to it, I thought, oh man, my chop sounds so stupid. But the Patty on the Turnpike one was good because he played it, and he finished, and he says, now you can tell right there that that tune doesn't want to go any other place but where it's supposed to be.
Ooh, feel
And
that.
this way Vassar and them are playing it. That ain't right. Yeah. And he says, and it's hurting the number. And this here's right. So he plays it, and then he plays it wrong. Like there's some completely off the wall notes in there. But it was like he just stopped short of saying, and if I catch you playing it like this. So it was pretty funny. But it was quite intense, of course, because I'm playing his mandolin, he's playing mine. And so my memory has been kind of wiped clean for.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely would be one of the guiltiest when it comes to the free range liberties, which might have seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah.
But
So,
on the fun of
yeah, but he was very generous, and I mean, not overly warm, I wouldn't say, but not unfriendly. And then there was another time we played at Bean Blossom, and I asked him if I tuned my mandolin up for Get Up John, if he'd play it. So he played it on stage. So that was pretty exciting.
It's super cool.
Yeah.
One last question, and we'll be sad to see you go, but just thank you so much for
Oh
visiting.
yeah, I
with us.
appreciate it a lot.
Where do you see like your music going? Where's the frontier drawing you right now?
Well, that's a good question. Like I'm still trying to learn stuff. I had this. It was a bit of a stretch, although not completely out of my comfort zone. But I was asked by the Fresh Grass Foundation. They put on the festival in Western Massachusetts in North Adams, and they do commissions, or they ask certain musicians to write something, whether
Yeah,
it's a
it's really cool.
songwriter doing a song cycle. And I think they'd asked a few instrumentalists like Jerry Douglas to write a bluegrass concerto. And
Wow.
last year they asked me to do that, and they sent kind of an outline of what it would look like, and they said it could basically be like a fiddle tune and something in this. But I got really excited about it and just had a concept, because I guess in classical music the concerto form is three movements, the first being up tempo, then the second one being slower, and then the final one being up tempo again with an extended solo section. And so I just thought immediately of what I would want to include in those, and over the year fleshed it out, and we performed it last September, and it was my band, the Jaybirds, augmented with Sharon Gilchrist playing second mandolin, and Daryl Anger played second fiddle. So it was quite fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that like on YouTube or anything?
No, I hope to record it, but and maybe film it. So because a guy named Patrick McGonigal just.
Yeah. Oh no. He disappeared. I guess he had a hard stop. No, thank you so much for being with us. And I just wanted
yeah.
to know if there are any parting words of, encouragement for the folks on the climb here you wanted to share. We'd love to.
Well, no, I just think I was really interesting what you and David had to say about approaching any given tune, using the devices and arpeggios. And I find the arpeggios super helpful, especially when it comes to improvising, and those basic double stops. Those are just two notes of an arpeggio as well. So I think that's really good. But I think mainly just trying to focus on the tone and the timing.
Yeah.
Two of the three T's. I don't know what the third T is, but I know what those are.
Yeah. No, that's. Say again, David?
Taste, tone, timing.
Yeah. Tuning is for mandolins.
Tuning. That's a good one,
Yeah.
too.
Tremolo.
All right. The five
Yeah.
T's. Yeah.
Hey,
Well,
David, good to see you there. I'm not sure I've seen you in a
For
long time.
time. I'm really happy to see you still playing that junky old mandolin.
Yeah, it's hard to, find a good one. But
I know. I can't afford one.
yeah. Yeah, you too, I see too.
Yeah, I still got the same one.
Yeah, that's great. Well, it's nice to have the companions down through the years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good to see you.
Yeah. Likewise.
Yeah, John, thank you so much. Please give me a holler if I could ever help
Yes.
you with
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Keep
Yeah.
sharing
Thanks.
your big, beautiful mandolin heart with the world. We love it.
Yeah. I look forward to seeing you all in person.
Likewise, man. Have a
Yeah.
great night.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you, John.